Hey, good morning. It's Patricia Murphy. It's Monday. This is Seattle Now. One lucky vaccinated Washingtonian will be $250,000 richer tomorrow. That's when we'll hold the first shot-of-a-lifetime lottery drawing that the governor hopes will move some people off the fence and into a clinic. In a minute, we'll talk with UW psychology professor Jane Simoni about why the lottery tactic works. But first, let's get you caught up. Incentives not really needed here in Seattle. The city could soon hit a 70% vaccination rate among people 12 and up, and that's fully vaxxed people, not just showing up for a first dose, which is what the state is using as its reopening goal. KUOW reports Mayor Durkin stopped by a pop-up clinic in the Central District yesterday. She thinks we'll hit 70% sometime this week. The mayor says we'd be the first city in the country to hit that mark. Seattle renters could see more protections. There are a couple of renters' rights bills on today's city council agenda. One would ban evictions for unpaid rent due to a pandemic-caused financial hardship. Another would shield children, families, and teachers from eviction during the school year. Those are both on the council's agenda for this afternoon. And the city's new payroll tax beat a court challenge late Friday. A King County judge rejected a suit by the Chamber of Commerce that called it illegal, invalid, and unenforceable. The tax on highly paid employees at large companies could raise more than $200 million a year. The Chamber says it's considering its next move.
I was screaming enough that my parents thought that I was crying and that something was wrong. And when I started yelling that I won $1 million and I was going to be a millionaire, they told me to calm down and make sure it wasn't a prank before I really started freaking out.
That's 22-year-old Abigail Bajensky. She was the first winner of Ohio's $1 million vaccine lottery. And if you're thinking, hey, $1 million for just getting vaccinated sounds like a pretty good deal, you are in luck. The state of Washington is giving away $1 million prize to a resident who's been vaccinated, along with a bunch of smaller prizes. It's part of the shot of a lifetime drawing. We wanted to know what's going on inside our brains when we get offered these kinds of incentives for being vaccinated. Jane Simoni is here to help us understand. She's a professor of psychology at the University of Washington. Jane, really good to talk to you.
Thank you. My pleasure to be here.
Why does the possibility of $1 million work when the possibility of a hospital stay, becoming sick, or even death doesn't work? And I'm thinking, you could apply this to a lot of things like smoking and diabetes care or heart disease.
Yes, that's a very good question. We tried that with other health behaviors. You might remember the campaigns around wearing seatbelts or not driving under the influence of alcohol. They tried to scare people, so there were scare tactics about it. Pictures of skeletons or red asphalt videos we saw on driver's ed in my generation. But they found that fear works sometimes for some people. In general, though, it does not work as effectively as a positive reinforcement. People avoid fear. They tend not to think about it. They push it aside. It's aversive. It doesn't motivate you. It doesn't keep you interested for the long time. It's something you want to not think about. Although it seems powerful and it can jolt people into behavior change. You think of a doctor that's told my 88-year-old father, listen, you cannot be drinking. This is not good for your heart. You can stop on a dime sometimes, but then to continue that behavior and to be able to keep it going is a little bit harder. And it does help to have positive reinforcement on a continual basis.
That being said, what are the limitations of this kind of lottery setup? Who won't this work for?
Yeah, I think it's going to work for a lot of people. It'll especially be helpful, as I understand it, for those on the fence that have been thinking about it, but they're not entirely opposed to doing it. I had a worker come to my house the other day, and he said, well, I'll wear my mask inside because I haven't gotten my vaccine. So that led to a 20-minute conversation. The poor guy didn't know who he was talking to about what was he thinking about that, why was he involved, and he was open to it somewhat. Has the means to get to a place, has the access to get to it, is someone who would be eligible to receive a vaccine. But there hasn't been enough to really push him to get it yet. I think he's a good candidate for it. On the other hand, I've spoken to people that are absolutely convinced, and some of these clearly conspiratory theories that are conspiracy theories that something really terrible is going to happen to them. He did tell me he knew someone who became blind once he got the vaccine. If you really believe in these events that really are not related to the vaccine in any way we could possibly think they are, those people are going to be a little bit harder to convince. And even if you really think you're going to die, or if you really think you're going to have something implanted in you with a vaccine, even a large amount of money is probably not enough to change you. And on the same end, if you have barriers, you can't get to a place, you can't drive, you have no ride, you don't know how to navigate the system, you are going to need other strategies. And that's why this multi-pronged approaches to overcoming vaccine hesitancy are the most successful. So you saw Biden roll out, let's have the country doctor, the family doctor, especially in rural areas, talk to individual patients. Right. So have a trusted expert, have an authority talk to you. What are your individual barriers, your individual concerns? How can we address them?
Right. And what you're bringing up is so important because there are so many reasons. This is such a personal decision on so many levels, right? There's just the broad, it's good for public health, but everything else underneath is the iceberg there, including a woman I saw on the news who was furious about this incentive. She is just mad. She is not going to get the vaccine, and she's furious that someone is now laying this out as an incentive for her. She's just getting more furious as it gets more difficult to become less tempted or avoid it.
There is a downside of it in some of this research that UCLA was doing. When you offer an incentive, there is a certain percentage of individuals who will now be less likely to get the vaccine. And why is that? Why are you less likely to do something now? You'll get paid for it. It's kind of related to cognitive dissonance. It's supposed to be good for you, but then they're paying you to do it, so maybe it really isn't so good. And maybe there's some kind of vast government conspiracy to now force me to get it done.
This is really hitting me. Jane, because I hate to be told what to do.
Yeah. We haven't come there, though. Actually, I'll say that is one strategy that this is not. They're not mandating you get it, which I actually think they should be doing more. It almost relieves them of the responsibility for making that choice. It absolves you of the worry, and you're trying to figure out what's true, what's not true. You just get it done. I think there is a place for that.
Right. Ultimately, I'm curious if this will work because it pencils out financially. But is it the best way to get us where we need to be?
We need, as I said, a multi-pronged approach. We need every way we can because we've got to reach this so-called herd immunity to really stop COVID in its tracks. And it looks like because of the variants being so much more infectious that we need a higher percentage of people to be vaccinated before we can really reach this herd immunity. It's harder than we thought, so we really are going to need multiple different strategies at multiple levels to address the remaining people who are hesitant to get the vaccines. And I think a lottery is one darn good way of trying to do it.
Well, I am looking forward to seeing the first Washington State winner. Jane Simoni, thanks so much. You're a professor of psychology at the University of Washington. Really appreciate your time.
My pleasure.
Seattle Now is produced by Clare McGrane, Caroline Chamberlain Gomez, and Jason Pagano. Matt Jorgensen does our theme music. I'm Patricia Murphy. See you tomorrow.